The day before the end of the world, one guy decided to start a new life by mass slaughter. No, not people, cows. He went back to the farm, and the first thing he did was slaughter all the cattle that had fed his family for years. You know, like normal people come home with gifts and butcher knives, the villagers almost lost their jaws. They stood there and looked at him as if he had brought summonses to the cows. His ex-girlfriend was hilarious. Even if he sold all this genocide of cows, it would not be enough for her dowry of 80,000. And by the way, she already has a new beau, richer and, as she put it, with brains. But Joshua only gave a short toss. Go away. Don't get in the way. I have cows to cut. Just like that. No tears, no explanation. Because he knew that in 3 hours it would be the end. Not in the philosophical sense. Literally, the apocalypse. And here's the funny thing. It won't start with humans. The first to go are the furry ones. Pets. Yes. Those cute little lumps that sleep at your side will mutate into demons with fangs. And then the virus will sweep through humanity at a rate that would make COVID look like a retired cold. A month from now, bury civilization. Joshua had seen it all before in a previous life. He watched the world fall apart, loved ones die, and he couldn't do a damn thing about it. But now, it's different. He's not going to let it happen again. And just at that moment, the parents fly into the house. Dad's in panic 3000 mode, screaming, "What the hell is going on here?" The mother is in tears. "How will we live now if you slaughter all the cows?" Joshua freezes. The knife falls to the floor. He rushes over to them with a hug. He doesn't care if they're in shock. What matters is that they're alive, and he won't lose them this time. By all means. His parents, of course, look at him as the same guy who slaughters cows without explanation. But he doesn't give them time to doubt. He says clearly, "We need to slaughter the cattle, sell the meat. It's urgent, time's running out," and then a miracle happens. My father agrees. After all, a college graduate is almost like a doctor of science in the village. Mother sighs silently, rolls up her sleeves, and goes to help. The family carnage begins. The villagers, meanwhile, gather around the fence and gawk like they're filming a new installment of Village Psychopaths. But Joshua's not worried. He jumps up on the hill and yells, "I need 3, 800 wen each in cash." The crowd is immediately energized. People who didn't want to take out the garbage in the morning are now eager to make a little money at the slaughterhouse. It's a real capitalist tragicomedy, and the butcher Joshua calls agrees to cut the price in half. The main thing is to do it quickly, for cash, and not to ask how he got so many carcasses. The parents watch with pain in their eyes as their beloved cattle are turned into money. But Joshua is already on his way to town. Before he leaves, he throws over his shoulder, "Don't open the gate, no matter what they hear. Wait for me." He speeds down the dusty road, never slowing down. Along the way, he buys everything he can get his hands on for self-defense. Pharmacies, warehouses, even stores with Chinese firecrackers. Nothing goes unnoticed. But what he needs most of all is gunpowder. Yeah, you heard right. Because whoever has the firepower at the beginning of the apocalypse is the survivor. He's headed to an underground fireworks factory. Now pay attention. The owner of this peaceful factory is Ling Jia, the guy who stole his girlfriend from him. What a twist, huh? Joshua bursts in and tosses a bag of cash on the table. Ling Jia grins. "What, you want to bring the girl back with fireworks?" But Joshua doesn't even blink. "I don't care about her. Where's the gunpowder?" The smile on Lin's face immediately disappears. He tries to turn on the legitimate entrepreneur, but Joshua plays it safe. "Remember the woman in the blue coat? They found her by the back mountain. You want me to dig her up and ask her what you guys are really making here?" Lin's sweat starts to drip. He realizes, this guy is not kidding. After a moment, he throws, "Li Qin, take him to the warehouse." And here's the irony. Joshua's ex-girlfriend, now Lin's handmaiden, leads him to the stockpile of explosives. And Lin, staying in the office, utters an almost ominous phrase. "So someone really knows. Looks like he won't be here for long." Equipped and ready, Joshua returns home. But he's met by his brother with bad news. Their little sister, who's studying in the city, still hasn't returned. And in a previous life, she was already home by this point. He freezes. Can everything he's changed already affect the course of events? We're only 30 minutes away from disaster. He doesn't say a word. He just gets in the truck and drives into town. He yells behind him, "Don't leave the house. Whatever you hear, don't open the door." The wheels squeal, the engine roars. He knows most first-day infections come from animals. And there are hundreds of students in the schools. Once the virus gets there, all hell will break loose. And then, as if on cue, the truck shakes violently. Joshua flies into the street and sees the first mutation. There's a dog convulsing in The road. Its eyes glow bright red. A thick black slime drips from its mouth. Here we go. While the world was still on the verge of chaos, rumors were already circulating in Qingshan Middle School that Joshua had slaughtered all the cattle on his farm. This news spread around the classroom like a fire on dry grass. Her younger sister, Zhou Ying, was instantly reviled, as the students considered her crazy like the rest of her family. One of the students decided to show her courage and began to humiliate her in public, but Zhou Ying did not hold back. With one blow, she knocked the phone out of the hands of the offender. A second later, the teacher came into the classroom, saw the mess, and of course punished the wrong person. Standard school justice. After class, when Zhou Ying was left to clean up the classroom, the same girl jumped out of the ambush. She was holding a kitchen knife. She was shaking with rage. Everything was headed for tragedy, if not for a sudden attack. Her body twisted. Black blood gushed from her mouth. She collapsed to the floor, gasping and choking on her vomit. Zhou Ying jumped out into the corridor in terror, but it was no better there. Screams of pain, panic, and horror echoed throughout the school. One of her classmates, already mutated, lunged at her with bulging eyes and gagging mouth. Luckily, he missed and crashed to the floor with a thud. A moment later, another Li Xiaoya walked down the corridor. She was now completely transformed. Her body was unnaturally curved and a creepy grin spread across her face. She shrieked and rushed straight at Zhou Ying, but at the very last moment, it was as if a hammer had fallen from the ceiling. Joshua appeared just in time to throw the mutant to the end of the corridor with a powerful leg kick. Another zombie rose through the broken window, but it had only time to take a step before Joshua's short blade cut the air. The creature's head flew off before its body hit the ground. Zhou Ying was trembling and crying. She was on the brink, but there was no time for consolation. The school was swarming with infected people, and it was deadly dangerous to stay here. Her brother grabbed her hand and they rushed to the parking lot. Already in the car, she tried to hide her fear behind a strained smile, but it was clear she was shaken. Joshua spoke calmly, trying to bring her back to reality. He knew that everything was different now. He couldn't go on living the old way. The family was alive, and that was the most important thing. Not yet. In the village where everything looked calm, the hidden contamination was already beginning to show. When they got home and made sure everything was okay, Joshua realized he had to leave. He couldn't just sit still. His mother tried to stop him, but Zhou Ying made it clear. This man needed to be trusted. For the first time, she saw her brother as not just a family man, but a true leader. He had a strength that was wild, indomitable, but full of potential. Scraps of memories of a mysterious warrior from a past life flashed through his mind. That man had single-handedly broken through the zombie hordes like a shadow. If he could find him again now, he would be an ally who would not even be afraid of the end of the world. Meanwhile, inside the village committee building, the situation was heating up. Xia Bingbing, one of the local women, tried to hold the door open, preventing the panic-stricken peasants from entering. She believed to the last that it was just an emotional outburst, but everything changed in an instant. A huge gray-blue hand smashed through the door. The zombies burst in, bleeding, snarling, and wild-eyed. The officials froze, unable to move. They just didn't have the guts. And then, at the last possible moment, the window exploded, and Joshua burst into the room. His blade glinted like lightning. One by one, the zombies fell at his feet. He reached Xia Bingbing and examined her carefully, checking for signs of infection. Fortunately, she was clean. He faintly breathed a sigh of relief. Once in her past life, she had been inaccessible, cold, almost cruel. Now she was frightened, alive, vulnerable. At that moment, the man with the glasses, one of the officials, went berserk with a scream. He didn't understand why Joshua had killed the infected. To him, they were old neighbors he'd lived with all his life. Joshua tried to explain. These creatures are no longer human. All it takes is one drop of blood, one bite, and a man turns into a monster. But the man refused to believe it. He still saw the zombies as Old Man Zhang, who was supposedly looking for his granddaughter. He suggested calling the police, as if they could do anything to help in the coming hell. And then Ling Jia appeared. He walked out of the back room, slowly clapping his hands, smug as ever. His voice sounded mocking, and a smirk played on his face. He was having fun, as if everything that was happening was a show, and he was the only one who had read the script beforehand. The crowd exploded. Some shouted, some started making threats. One guy, a particularly clever one, said that zombies are fantasy fiction for imaginative teenagers, and that's when things really started to heat up. Fortunately, Jia Bingbing interrupted this madness. She reminded everyone that Joshua had just saved their lives and added, "Believe what you want, but those people were no longer acting like people." That cooled the crowd slightly, but the tension hung in the air like an axe over their necks. Joshua, wasting no time, offered to show the evidence. He suggested going to the forest behind the mountain, the place where everything had just started. Ling Jia immediately tensed up. He had long suspected that Joshua knew something, especially after the stockpiling of weapons and the strange preparations. His inner voice clearly told him that if Joshua really had evidence, he shouldn't come back from this forest alive. With a strained smile, Ling Jia gathered his guys and volunteered to go with him, ostensibly just in case. Xia Bingbing and the man with glasses, Huang Tao, also volunteered. She had concerns for the safety of the villagers, while Huang had his own reasons. His wife was still on the missing list. The village headman had left to search for people as early as that morning, but no one had heard from him since. When the group reached the foot of the mountain, they quickly found his abandoned car. The hood was still warm. He had left recently, but where to, they could only guess. Joshua's mind began to remember bits and pieces of his past life. If this was the same scenario, this forest would be the epicenter of the first outbreak. They found nothing for a long time, until at last they came upon a cave entrance hidden among the rocks. The ground in front of it was stained with blood. The air was heavy with the tang of rot and death. Something had definitely happened here. While the others hesitated, Joshua stepped forward. But of course, Ling Jia didn't miss the chance to interject a barb, accusing him of hiding evidence. He was hiding his crime in the cave. The answer was an icy stare and a dry warning. "If you're afraid, stay." Everyone else could go, but no whining. Just as he stepped into the darkness, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Huang Tao's wife, the one who had gone missing. The man shouted with joy and rushed toward her with his arms open. The joy lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then she sank her teeth into his throat. Joshua reacted instantly. He lunged forward and plunged his blade into her skull. Without a word, no hesitation, simple and effective. She was no longer human, but Huan, overwhelmed by shock and despair, reacted differently. He screamed and lunged at Joshua with a stick, accusing him of murder. In his eyes, it was still his wife. Joshua pulled him to the ground and quietly but firmly explained that there was no choice. This was no longer human. It had crossed the line. He was doing what he needed to do to make sure the others survived. But Juan didn't care. He shouted that if Joshua's family had been in his wife's place, he'd see how calm Joshua would have been. Those words pierced Joshua harder than a stick. The dead bodies of his loved ones came to mind, drenched in blood. His heart raced, his breathing hitched. With a roar, he grabbed Juan by the pecs and lifted him effortlessly into the air. His eyes glittered with coldness. He was ready to strike, and then, just a second before the irreparable, he was stopped by a strong hand. It was his older brother Zhou Ming. With a stone face and a firm voice, he stopped the madness. He reminded everyone that, yes, it hurt. Yes, it's a tragedy. But this is not a time for revenge. Now is the time to pull together and think about how to survive. Juan was the village leader. These people needed him. After saying that, Juan nodded slowly, trembling. The tension that had been squeezing the air was finally released, and then a voice came from the cave. Someone was calling for help. The tone was that of the village chief, or someone who knew how to copy him well. The voice sounded too calm, too human. One of Ling Jia's guys, the one who liked to play the hero, snorted and said that he would go by himself. Of course he did, but he didn't get very far. The next thing everyone heard was a wet, meaty sound, like someone was trying to cut through a watermelon but too deep. A second later, the half-torso of the former hero came out of the cave. His chest was cut to the waist, blood gushing out. A zombie stepped out of the shadows. It discarded half, its body like trash, and behind it, dozens, no, hundreds, of ominous red eyes flashed in the darkness. The horde, the real one. Joshua realized it was much worse than he expected. There were too many of them. Even if he got through, would he be able to protect his brother in summer? But he had an advantage. The Zhou brothers had been trained by a martial arts master, a former military man, since childhood, and now it was their only salvation. The Zhou brothers' skills couldn't just be called good. They were the elite, the kind that could knock out half of the UFC's fighters without breaking a sweat. They were in perfect sync, striking, dodging, clearing the area, all at the pace of a martial ballet. Joshua was a clear reminder to aim for the head, and these things are sensitive to light. That's a handy little trick, by the way. While the brothers were methodically crushing the infected, Ling Jia quietly hid behind a tree, trying not to breathe. Just a little more, and he would have merged with the bark. And again the same voice from the depths of the cave, just as ominous, just as unnaturally human. The brothers looked at each other. Joshua said firmly that it was time for the others to go back. It was too dangerous to go any farther. He and Min continued into the darkness, and soon they came upon a corpse. It looked as if everything had been sucked out of it, only the husks remained. And next to it sat a figure with his back to them. It was the village chief, or something that resembled him. He turned around slowly. His face was pale and his eyes were empty. Tentacles began to crawl out of his chest. The creature sprang into the air with frightening speed. Joshua reacted instantly, swung his blade, and realized it didn't work. But the moment the blade struck, he knew something was wrong. It barely flinched. That wasn't a regular zombie. This was a mutant. In the next instant, tentacles whipped out and sent Zhuo flying into the cave wall. Zhou Ming's flashlight beam caught the creature's face and it screeched, recoiling violently from the light. They seized the moment and scrambled out of the cave. Gasping for breath, Zhou Ming turned to his brother, stunned. What the hell was that thing? Joshua exhaled, slowly. I think we're looking at a cross-species infection, some kind of genetic recombination between animals and humans. It's no longer just undead, it's evolved. He nodded toward the dark, gaping mine shaft. My guess, there's a whole nest of mutated bats in there. And that thing was a second-stage variant, probably once the village chief. Zhuo glanced up at the full moon. Good thing tonight's bright. These things fear light. They won't come out easily. Zhou Ming looked at him in disbelief. Since when did you become a virologist? Zhou was shrugged, half smirking. Guess I binged one too many documentaries before the world went to hell. They were just about to head back, planning to return the next day with proper gear to deal with the mutant, when suddenly a swarm of glowing red eyes burst from the cave. It was a horde of mutated bats. The sky darkened in an instant, the moonlight swallowed by wings. Taking advantage of the chaos, the mutated zombie launched itself forward like a cannonball, smashing Zhou Ming with a brutal strike and sending him flying. One of its tentacles lashed out, shattering the flashlight Zhuo held. The creature's intent was clear. It had locked onto Zhou Ming as its target. Zhuo gritted his teeth and pulled with all his strength, but it was useless. The monster's power was overwhelming, far beyond what any human could resist. Just as the creature's jaws were about to close around Zhou Ming's hand, Zhuo was frozen in helpless horror. Then, out of nowhere, a car came speeding onto the scene. The door slammed open, and behind the wheel was Xia Bingbing. She aimed, without hesitation, and rammed the mutated zombie, sending it flying. Zhuo didn't miss the opening. He rushed forward and struck the final blow, ending the creature's life for good. When they realized the monster was actually the village chief, Xia Bingbing was visibly shaken. Zhou Ming exhaled deeply, his voice weary but sincere. If you hadn't shown up when you did, we'd both be dead right now. But before they could catch their breath, Zhuo's face turned pale. He'd spotted it deep on Zhou Ming's forearm, a clear bite mark. Zhou Ming gave a faint, tired smile. I'm sorry, little brother. You'll have to take care of the family now. And as for what comes next, I don't need to say it, do I? Those words tore through Zhou like a blade, because deep down, he already knew he would have to be the one to end his brother's suffering. Staring at his infected brother, Zhou was overwhelmed with guilt. He had believed that being reborn would give him the chance to change fate, to protect his family. So why? Was history repeating itself? Suddenly, his eyes locked onto the corpse of the mutant. He rushed over and yanked the blade out from the creature's skull, then began hacking at its head again and again, relentlessly, blood splattering everywhere. Zhou Ming, thinking his brother had snapped from grief, cried out, Zhuo, what are you doing? Stop it. Xia Bingbing also called out to him, trying to pull him back. But Zhuo didn't stop because something had just come to him. He remembered that high-level zombies absorb viral energy from the lower ones and condense it into a crystallized core hidden deep within their skulls. Moments later, he found it, a dark, blood-colored crystal nestled in the back of the creature's brain. He turned back to Zhou Ming, his voice steady, eyes burning with hope. You haven't turned yet. There's still time. And with that, he held out the crystal. Zhou spoke with a heavy voice. This is a zombie core formed by concentrated viral matter. It shares the same source as what's in your body. If you take it, there's a chance you could evolve into an immune-enhanced type, but there's also a chance you'll turn into one of those monsters. Zhou Ming barely glanced at it, before swallowing it down without hesitation. Zhou Yizhua hesitated, but deep down, he knew this was their only shot. After swallowing it, Zhou Ming smirked. Seriously? You had this the whole time? Could have saved me the drama. So when does it kick in? Zhou Zhuo answered flatly. Within 2 days. Zhou Ming nodded, turning toward the cave. 2 days. If I'm not out by then, seal it up. But if I come out with superpowers, you better not get jealous. Watching his brother walk away, so casually, Joshua finally felt the weight in his chest lift a little. He believed in him. With a faint smile, he whispered, I'll be waiting, hidden, behind a tree nearby. Ling Jia had been eavesdropping on the whole conversation. A sinister grin crept across his face. So that's how it is. Fine then. Let me help speed things up. The next morning, as the sun began to rise, Zhou Ying burst into Zhou's room in full DIY battle gear. Bro, time to get up. Zhou's returned his head and gave her a helpless look. What are you wearing? You look like something out of a bad sci-fi cosplay. Zhou Ying puffed up proudly. You said we needed to step up our defenses. I stayed up all night making this armor. Pretty cool, huh? She waited, expecting praise, only for Zhou Zhuo to casually reach out and poke the armor with one finger. Zhou Ying tumbled out of the room like a rolling barrel. Zhou Zhuo stared, deadpan. That's your armor? What are you going to do when zombies show up? Roll them a death. Shaking his head, he stepped outside, only to spot his dad balancing on a ladder, stacking bricks to reinforce the courtyard wall. Mr. Zhou saw him and called out, Zhou, you're up. He hopped down from the wall, grabbed a barrel of black powder nearby, and walked over with a huge grin. Where'd you get this stuff? Come on, we're old men, keep a few barrels to play with. Zhou sighed. Dad, that's gunpowder, not a toy. But Mr. Zhou had already slung the barrel over his shoulder, jogging away with a laugh. Just one. You're too stingy. Watching his overly excited dad, Zhou Shui muttered, Please don't blow up the house. Suddenly, a loud clang came from the side yard. He turned and saw his mom, frying pan strapped to her head, wielding a trident, feet planted on a yoga roller, training with his little sister who was mimicking her moves. Zhou was stared at the scene, then thought to himself, Yep, definitely. Mother and daughter. Then he asked out loud, Mom, any breakfast today? Without turning her head, she answered, Make your own. I'm busy, and went right back to perfecting her fork technique. Zhou, you should recite again. Guess I'll go mooch a meal off Uncle Neo. Xia Bingbing had been standing at Zhou's doorstep for a while, just about to press the doorbell. When the door opened from the inside, Zhou Zhuo stepped out, surprised. You're here? What are you doing outside? Xia Bingbing lowered her head, hesitating. Then, as if summoning her courage, she looked up and said loudly, I need your help with something. Joshua blinked. Help with what? Just then, his mom came to the door as well. When she saw who it was, she smiled warmly. Oh, Bing Bing. Come in. Come in. Xia Bingbing gave a polite nod. Thanks, Andy, but I won't stay long. I'm here to talk to Joshua. She turned back to him, her tone serious. The village committee has started organizing defenses. It's going okay so far, but I contacted the county police station last night, and ever since then, nothing. No messages. And this morning, no signal at all. Zhou Shu quickly checked his phone. No bars. He frowned. That's strange. This didn't happen. Last time. Xiao Bingbing continued, her voice tense. It doesn't feel right. If we're cut off, we might miss something critical, like incoming support. She met his gaze. Zhou Shu, I need you to come with me to the county. We have to find out what's going on. Zhou was stood in silence, clearly troubled by what Xia Bingbing had said. Sensing his hesitation, Xia Bingbing bowed deeply. I am sorry. I know your brother went through hell yesterday, and now I'm asking you to take another risk. She looked up, eyes steady. But I have to go to the county to find out what's going on. It's my responsibility. And you're the best fighter I know. You understand those creatures better than anyone. At that moment, Jojo's mom stepped in and gently interrupted. That's enough, Bingbing. If it weren't for you yesterday, my foolish son might not have made it back at all. Xiao Bingbing turned toward the voice, surprised. Mrs. Zhou added, What happened with Ming was his choice. Don't blame yourself. Bingbing, wait here a moment. Then she turned to her son. Zhuo, come with me. Joshua glanced at his mom and followed her into the house. Inside, she stood quietly, rummaging through an old wooden shelf. Without turning around, she spoke softly. Your father and I were your parents. We're not supposed to hold you back. We're meant to shield you, not weigh you down. Look at you, all grown up and still making your little sister worry. With that, she pulled out a long blade wrapped in old cloth. Time had aged it, but its edge still gleamed faintly. Jojo and Xia Bingbing walked side by side, heading off toward the county. Behind them, Zhou's mother stood quietly at the gate, watching until their figures disappeared into the distance. A faint smile appeared on her face as she murmured to herself, "Those two make quite the pair, don't they?" Meanwhile, deep inside the cave, Zhou Ming sat still, waiting for his body to react to the zombie core he had just swallowed. Suddenly, he heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Thinking it was his brother, he opened his mouth. "Zhuo Wei, don't come any closer yet." Then, he felt something wet trickling past his boots. Frowning, he dipped a finger into the liquid and brought it to his nose. The moment he smelled it, his expression changed. Gasoline! Before he could react, a spark ignited at the mouth of the cave. A deafening explosion erupted. Flames tore through the tunnel, and Zhou Ming was swallowed by the blaze in an instant. Meanwhile, Jojo and Xia Bingbing were on the road, heading toward the county in search of help. Xia Bingbing sat in the passenger seat, staring nervously out the window, softly humming a tune, completely off-key. Jojo glanced sideways and couldn't help but think, wow, she really is tone-deaf. Noticing his stare, Xia Bingbing blushed slightly and muttered, "Sorry. I hum when I'm nervous. I know I sound terrible." But Jojo wasn't laughing. In fact, he felt a strange warmth. She was clearly scared, yet still forcing herself forward. Yeah, he thought, that's the Xia Bingbing I know. With so many unexpected variables this time around, he realized he couldn't rely solely on memories from his past life and her sensitivity to zombies. That was something he had to trust. Without warning, he said, "Xia Bingbing, you should come stay at my place." She froze, turning to look at him, cheeks slightly flushed. "Why would I do that?" she asked softly. Joshu didn't even notice the change in her tone. He was still caught in his thoughts. If I told her about her future powers, she'd never believe me. So instead, he just said plainly, "Because I need you safe, I can't afford to lose you." Just as Xia Bingbing, cheeks still flushed, was about to ask what he meant, Joshu was suddenly frowned. Up ahead, the road was completely blocked by a massive landslide. They quickly got out of the car to inspect. Looking at the mountain of debris, Xia Bingbing sighed in frustration. "There's no way we're getting to the county like this." Joshua didn't reply right away, but inside, he was tense. This road was fine in my last life. Something's changed. Not just the timing, but the entire path. If this route is truly cut off, we're going to have serious problems with future supplies. He finally exhaled. "Let's head back to the village. We'll figure something out." Xia Bingbing nodded silently. On the way back, Zhuge was mind-raced. They had enough supplies to hold out for now, but no signal, no way out. Everything felt like it was closing in. Suddenly, clunk. The car jolted violently, then began sliding toward the edge of the bridge. Joshua slammed the brakes, gripping the wheel tight. With a screech of tires, the vehicle stopped just inches from tumbling off the edge. Both of them quickly jumped out to check what had happened. Xia Bingbing stared at the ground, her voice trembling. "Is that?" Joshua's face darkened. "Don't get close. That's a spike strip. Someone put it there on purpose." Just then, a mocking voice echoed from above. Well, well, Joshua. Didn't take you long to cozy up to our pretty little village chief. Gotta say, I'm impressed." They looked up to see Ling Jia crouched on the railing, spinning a pistol between his fingers, his eyes full of menace. Joshua looked up coldly. "What do you want?" Ling Jia sneered. "What do I want? You wiped out half my crew last night. As their leader, I can't exactly let that slide, can I?" He jumped down and started walking toward them slowly, step by step. Joj was scoffed. "Want revenge? Then go pick a fight with the zombies. Not with us." His eyes narrowed, but after the way. "You cowered last night. I doubt you even have the guts. That did it." Ling Jia's face twisted with rage. "You son of a... I'll kill you right here." Joshua calmly rested his hand on the hilt of his blade, a cold smile forming. "Go ahead. Try me." But just as the tension hit its peak, Ling Jia suddenly turned his gun and fired at Xia Bingbing without warning. The shot rang out. She collapsed, blood blooming across her shirt. Jojo froze, his eyes going wide. "Ling Jia!" he roared. "You sick bastard!" Ling Jia burst into laughter. "That's more like it. Yeah, you're feeling it now." He grinned cruelly. "If I want to hurt you, I go for the ones you care about most." "Ling, yeah," smirked maliciously. "Oh, right? Almost forgot to tell you. I saw your brother get bitten last night. You couldn't bring yourself to finish him off, could you? So I did. You a favor and blew up the entire mine." Joshua froze like he'd been struck by lightning. In the blink of an eye, his eyes turned bloodshot. With a roar, he drew his blade and charged at Ling Jia. Ling Jia grinned wickedly. "That's it, you idiot. Just what I wanted." As he raised his gun to fire, a dark blur exploded from the tree line. Crunch. It sank its jaws into Ling Jia's arm, ripping it clean off. Ling Jia collapsed, howling in agony, screaming like a stuck pig as he stared in horror at the creature. Joj was skidded to a stop, shocked by the sudden chaos. He narrowed his eyes. "That's a tier 2 zombie wolf." Meanwhile, back at the village, Jo Ying sat on the rooftop swinging her legs and mumbling, "Why aren't Second Bro and Bing Bing back yet?" Suddenly, loud pounding echoed from the front gate. A voice shouted urgently, "Is Jojo home? Open up." Jo Ying poked her head over the edge. "Brother Huang? Uncle Niu? My brother's not here. What's going on?" Huang Tao suddenly pointed toward the mountain ridge and shouted, "Look over there." Jo Ying quickly lifted her phone and turned on the flashlight, aiming it into the distance. As the beam focused on the hillside, her eyes widened, completely frozen in place. Swarming down the slopes were countless zombies, moving like a black tide toward the village. Meanwhile, Ling Jia lay on the ground, bleeding out, barely conscious. He cursed through gritted teeth. "Damn it, is this really how I go out?" The zombie wolf slowly turned its bloodshot eyes toward Jojua. Jojua's instinct screamed, "Not good! It's locked on to me!" With a deafening howl, the beast lunged straight at him. Jojua dodged to the side with lightning reflexes, slashing his blade across the creature's chest as it passed. Blood sprayed violently. The zombie wolf crashed to the ground, screeching in pain. Jojua caught his breath, eyes locked on the injured beast. Good. It's dusk. Its power isn't at full strength yet. But if night falls, Bing Bing, and I won't stand a chance. We have to end this before the sun goes down. Suddenly, a chorus of deep, guttural howls echoed from the woods. Jo Ishwa froze. More zombies. Then it hit him. His expression darkened. "No, this is a horde." His gaze snapped to the distance, where a rolling wave of undead surged through the forest. Wait, wasn't the village chief the source? But he's already dead. Then who is? The bats? Could they be the real cause? Just as Joshua pieced it all together, the zombie wolf lunged straight at him with a blood-curdling roar. Its claws slashed down viciously, aiming to rip him apart. At the last possible second, Joshua twisted his body, narrowly dodging the fatal blow. His heart pounded. How is it still this fast? It should be dying. Then he noticed it. The wound he had just carved into the creature's chest was closing up, healing rapidly right before his eyes. Before he could steady himself, the beast opened its massive jaws and lunged again, aiming to tear him apart. Meanwhile, deep inside the cave where Zhou Ming had been buried, the rubble still shook from earlier explosions. A deep rumble echoed, louder and louder through the tunnel. Then boom! An explosion of force sent the boulders flying in all directions. Moments later, Zhou Ming emerged from the smoke, his body radiating an eerie crimson glow. A cold, twisted smile crept across his face. Back on the bridge, Xia Bingbing stared in horror as the zombie wolf clamped down toward Zhou Zhuo. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "No, please don't." Just as the zombie wolf clamped its jaws around Joshua, a strange red aura erupted from his body, a fiery glow that pulsed like living energy beneath his skin. Power surged through him, raw, wild, uncontrollable. It felt like his entire being was burning and reborn. With a guttural roar, Joshua drove his fist straight into the beast's jaw. The zombie wolf, caught completely off guard, reeled backward from the devastating blow. It let out a tortured screech, blood gushing from its mouth as it crashed to the ground. Joshua didn't give it a chance to recover. His eyes burned red as he leapt forward, raising his blade high. And with one clean, brutal slash, he sliced the creature clean in half. As the dust settled, Xia Bingbing stared at the blood-soaked silhouette in disbelief. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Zhou Zhuo." He turned toward her with a soft smile. "Yeah, I'm here." Collapsing weakly against the ground, Xia Bingbing gave a faint smile. "Ha ha! As long as you're okay." Xia Bingbing stared at the severed zombie wolf, then at Zhou Zhuo, who stood calm and steady. She let out a weak chuckle. "You're ridiculously strong, and somehow I'm not even surprised. Is it because deep down," she thought, "I've already come to believe that he can fix anything?" Zhuon looked down at his hands. The power coursing through his body hadn't faded. It pulsed, wild yet controlled. Where did this come from? Could this be an awakening? But something didn't add up. In his past life, no one awakened without a crystal core. And yet, I never used one. He snapped out of it, eyes locking onto the swarm of undead surging toward them. His tone sharpened. Now's not the time to chat. We need to move. We're surrounded. If we stay here, we're dead. Noticing the injury on our leg, he stepped forward. You can't run like that. I'll carry you. Just hold on tight. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Gritting her teeth, Xia Bingbing struggled to stand. Her face was pale with pain, but she nodded firmly. Okay. The horde of zombies roared like a crashing wave, their snarls slicing through the air as they swarmed closer. Zhou Zhuo didn't hesitate. He threw Xia Bingbing over his back and sprinted toward the village with everything he had. The outline of the village came into view, but the undead were gaining fast, footsteps pounding like drums of death. He glanced back, calculating fast. There's too many of them. Even if I could take them all down, I can't protect Bing Bing from getting hurt. Just as he gritted his teeth and prepared to keep running, a loud roar echoed from the distance. A vehicle charging through the chaos like a missile. It was a heavily modified off-road truck spitting massive fireballs from its rear exhaust, mowing through zombies like paper targets. As it reached Zhou Zhuo, the driver pulled off a sharp drift. The tail swung wide, launching a wall of flame that blasted the oncoming undead into the air, burning them to ash in an instant. The car skidded to a stop. The driver's window rolled down, revealing Joe's dad, a cigarette dangling from his lips. With a big grin, he shouted, "Joe! Dad's here to save the day!" From the passenger seat, Joeing waved excitedly. And me, fire support locked and loaded. After picking them up, Joe's dad slammed on the gas, racing back toward the village. Seeing the undead still hot on their tail, he shouted, "Gunner! Fire 3 of the Joe-style dragon bombs!" "Roger that!" Zhou Ying yelled back without missing a beat, yanking 3 homemade firebombs from her pack and hurling them out the back window. Flames exploded behind them, setting several zombies ablaze, but the creatures still kept running, engulfed in fire. Zhou's dad gave a cold snort. "Still chasing us while you're on fire? All right, let's crank it up." He tossed a barrel of gunpowder out the window. Then, with a flick of his fingers, he launched his lit cigarette right into it. Boom. A massive explosion lit up the night, engulfing the road in a blazing inferno. Zhou Ying cheered from the back seat, eyes sparkling. That was insane. Let's go. Meanwhile, Zhou Zhuo and Xia Bingbing exchanged a look of helpless disbelief. This family might actually be crazier than the zombies. Joachim was suddenly remembered there was a medical kit under the seat. He bent down to retrieve it, just as he pulled out some bandages and ointment. Joachim snatched them from his hands and scolded, "Hey, you don't just grab a girl's leg like that?" Then, with a mischievous grin, she added, "Unless there's something going on between you two that I don't know about." Xiao Bingbing blushed and let out a shy chuckle. Zhou Zhuo rolled his eyes, muttering in his head, "This little Brattleway's stirring the pot." Ignoring her, he turned to his dad. "Dad, how's everything back home?" Joe's father kept his eyes on the rearview mirror, replying calmly, "We're good for now. The horde hasn't broken through the village yet." Joey nodded, then glanced at the explosives in the back. "By the way, all this dynamite, did you really make it? And you were smoking next to it? Seriously?" Joe's dad laughed proudly. "Of course. Back in the day, I was obsessed with explosives. Worked the mines as the team's demolition expert. Once the mines dried up, I had nothing to blow up anymore. Tried messing with firecrackers at home, but your mom shut that down real fast." He let out a long sigh, shaking his head like a man robbed of his true calling. Joe was suddenly remembered something and asked, "Wait, was that explosion in the kitchen last year you're doing?" His dad visibly stiffened, voice shaky. What? Of course not. Don't be ridiculous." Joe is re-squinted. "Dad, you're trembling," his dad mumbled. "Don't tell your mom." Before long, they arrived at the front gate. The moment they got out, loud screeching echoed from inside the yard. Joe's dad's face went pale. He ran to the door and slammed against it. Crap, it's locked from the inside. Without hesitation, Jojo was stepped forward, bent his knees, and smashed the door open with one powerful knee strike. Inside the courtyard, they were greeted by a surreal sight. Joe's mom, casually gripping a flailing zombie by the neck with one hand. She glanced at the creature and said coldly, "Oh, it's you. Auntie Zhang from the next village. Long time no see." Joe's dad and Zhou Ying peeked from behind the broken door frame. They shuddered at the sight of her furious expression and quietly hid behind the wall. Jojo stood at the front, cautiously calling out, "Mom!" She didn't even look up, still holding her frying pan. She growled at the zombie. "You really jumped out and scared me. Huh? You think just because you turned into this, you don't have to pay me back?" Joe's mom furiously swung her frying pan at the zombie woman. "And another thing, Last time we played cards, you still owe me 500. I gave your son 600 when he went to college, but when my eldest got accepted, you gave us nothing. And then you had the nerve to gossip about us? You deserve this." Jojo was stared at the scene in shock, edging toward his dad. When did Mom get this strong? His dad took a slow drag from his cigarette. "She's always been like this. Back in the day, your mom was the top dog in a 10-village radius. 3 to 5 men couldn't lay a hand on her. Things only calmed down after she met me. Though truth be told, she kind of forced me into marrying her." Thunk. A flying frying pan smashed into the back of his head. From inside the courtyard, his wife's voice shot out cold and sharp. "Liar. You were the one begging to marry me." She turned to glare at Joshua, "And you busted the front gate like a hero. Huh, wait till I get my hands on you." Joshua instantly took a step back, trying to sneak off, but Xia Bingbing quickly spoke up. "Auntie Xia, please don't blame him. He really was just worried about you." The moment those words left her mouth, Joe's mom froze mid-step. She slowly turned toward Bingbing, face softening like a flipped switch. "Oh, Bingbing's here too? I was just fooling around earlier. Don't take it seriously. And he's super easygoing, you know." Joshua stood there, staring blankly at the scene. Her acting is scarier than the zombies. Just then, a chilling roar came from the side of the courtyard wall. A zombie had climbed up and was shrieking wildly, but before it could jump down, it was struck mid-air and sent crashing back outside. Standing atop the wall, Huang Tao shouted urgently, "Quit chatting. They're getting in. Zombies are flooding the village, and there's a whole group heading straight for us from the west." Joshua's eyes sharpened. He summoned the energy within him, red light surging across his body, then launched himself straight into the fight. As he saw his dad flinging explosives, his sister manning a homemade cannon, and his mom charging forward with her iron pan, Joshua's heart surged with conviction. This time, we fight together. We're not letting a single one through. I'm not alone anymore. With my family beside me, we will survive this tide of death. But then, suddenly, the zombies at the rear began to retreat, showing blinked in disbelief. "Look, they're backing off. Or are they afraid?" Joe issued a frown. "No, zombies don't feel fear." As if to answer him, the zombies reappeared, this time, carrying ladders, crowbars, and even sauce. They were organizing. Joe's dad stared, stunned. "You've got to be kidding. They got tools now. Are we dealing with zombies or a siege army?" Jojo's voice turned cold. "They're not acting on instinct. Someone's controlling them." Amid the chaos, Jojo was suddenly caught a glimpse of a figure on a distant rooftop. He narrowed his eyes. It was Ling Jia, the man who should have died in the explosion, was now standing tall, his twisted face staring down at them with a cold, unnerving smile. At that moment, waves of zombies surged toward the Zhou family's compound. Relentless like a tidal wave, Zhou's dad cursed through gritted teeth. "Damn it, why are they all coming straight for us?" He turned and shouted, "The explosives! Zhou! Ying!" Panicked. "We're out! We used them all!" From the side, Huang Tao's voice rang out. "Jojo! Some of them are climbing in from the flank." Jojo turned sharply and saw several zombies scaling the sidewall. His heart sank. A diversion? They are using tactics now. Looking down, he saw Xia Bingbing and his parents surrounded, fending off the undead with whatever strength they had left. The entire family was locked in a desperate struggle. Jojo's eyes narrowed, red light flickering once more. "Dad, Mom, hold," the line in the courtyard. "Leave the rest to me." With that, his power surged, and he leapt off the wall, diving straight into the heart of the horde. Jojo's father watched as his son leapt into the horde, panic rising in his chest. He shouted, a voice cracking with fear. The next moment, the zombies swarmed over, burying Jojo beneath a mountain of gnashing teeth and clawing limbs. But underneath the crushing weight, Jojo wasn't afraid. He closed his eyes and felt the energy inside him roar to life like a volcanic storm. Gripping his blade tight, he growled through gritted teeth. Blood barrier, earthbreaker force. Ability unleashed, blood Azura. In a single explosive motion, he swung his sword outward. A crimson wave of power surged out from his body, obliterating every zombie within range, turning them into flying chunks of flesh and bone. As the blood settled, Joshua stood tall, panting. The move had triggered a memory. In his past life, he had seen a man from the Dawn Legion, the Supreme Commander Point, one of the most powerful ability users alive. He had used this exact same move. But Joshua knew his version of Blood Azura was still far from complete, and yet he didn't care that I don't need perfection, that I don't need to be the strongest. All I need is the strength to protect those I love. He looked up toward the twisted figure on the rooftop. These zombies mean nothing. The real threat is the one controlling them. If you want to end the chaos, take out the king. As another wave of zombies charged toward him, Jojo smirked, eyes glowing red. You seriously think this kind of trash is enough to stop me? Just as Jojo finished his words, a deafening roar exploded from behind him. A chill ran down his spine. He turned just in time to see a zombie lunging at Xia Bingbing. Before it could reach her, Joe's mom slammed her frying pan into the creature's face, sending it flying. She rushed to Bingbing's side, eyes filled with worry. Xia, are you okay? Did it bite you? Panting heavily, Bingbing shook her head. I'm fine, Auntie Xia. Where's Jojo? I saw him jump down just now. From a front yard, Zhou Ying called out excitedly. I saw him. He was like a superhero cutting down zombies like it was nothing. He'll be fine. But just as her words fell, boom! A thunderous crash echoed through the air. Zhou Ying froze. Slowly she turned around. And there, amid broken stone and dust, Le Jojois, bloodied and battered, straining to get up, he shouted hoarsely, Stay back! Don't come near, Ron! Towering before him stood a mutated zombie bear, twice the size of a truck, eyes glowing red, steel shards protruding from its spine. Its every breath steamed like smoke from furnace. It wasn't just watching, it was hunting. Joshua's body trembled in pain, but he forced himself to rise. He clenched his fists, gaze locked on the beast, voice low and resolute. Right now, I'm the only one who can face this, and I won't let my family get hurt. Not again. Joshua's eyes burned red as he unleashed every ounce of power within him. A storm of blood-red energy surged around him like wildfire. He stood firm in front of the monstrous bear, teeth clenched. If I have to die today, I'll die protecting my family. From the courtyard, his father, mother, and sister cried out in panic, Yua, fall back! But Joshua didn't move an inch. The giant zombie bear roared and lunged, its claw swinging down like a guillotine. Joshua dodged to the side just in time. But before the claw could hit, a loud crash echoed, followed by a familiar voice. Well, so you can use this kind of power too, huh? And here I thought you were slacking. The dust cleared, revealing Zhou Ming, calmly blocking the bear's claw with one hand. Sorry for the wait, little brother. Jojo's eyes widened in shock and joy. Big bro. Zhou Ming stretched his shoulders with smirk. Took me a bit of time in the mountains to get used to this power. He glanced at Jojo. Now watch closely. This is how you really use it. With a twist of his arm, Zhou Ming hurled the giant bear through the air. It flew like a derailed freight train, smashing into a pile of ruins with a deafening boom. Zhou Ming shook off the dust and smirked. Huh, still breathing? Tough hide, this oversized hamster. Zhou Ming turned back calmly and said, I've got this. You, go handle what only you can. Zhou was smirked, eyes cold as steel, understood. He slowly turned, locking eyes on Ling Jia, still standing atop the distant rooftop. Memories of his past life flooded back, his family dying in front of him, his own helpless screams in the night, the bitterness, the rage, the endless nightmares. This time, with power in my hands, I'll destroy everything that threatens them. Joshua stepped forward, his voice cold and sharp. Ling Jia, so you're still alive? Ling Jia turned slowly, his once severed arm now replaced with a grotesque wolf-like claw. He let out a low, rasping laugh. No, you're talking to someone else now. The old Ling Jia is dead. He grinned, eyes wild, fangs exposed. This body is broken free from the limits of humanity. I'm part zombie, part man, intelligence and control all in one. I command the horde. I keep my mind. In this apocalypse, I am king. Below, the zombie horde swarmed toward the building. Ling Jia stood tall, eyes closed, basking in the surge of dark power flooding his body. He smirked. You know, Joshua, I really ought to thank you. If you hadn't diced that zombie wolf into bits, I wouldn't have gotten that crystal core handed to me on a silver platter. His voice dropped lower, lips curling into a cruel grin. I've been thinking, how should I repay you for such a gift? And I finally decided. Shing. He didn't even get to finish a single flash of steel. Joshua's blade came down hard. Ling Ji's head split clean down the middle. Blood sprayed like a geyser. Joshua sheathed his sword with a cold expression. Still the same coward, just with a louder mouth. And you think you're fit to be king? He turned away, eyes scanning the battlefield. Now that Ling Ji is gone, Big Brother should have less pressure. On his end. But then, a chilling laugh echoed from behind. How was that it? Jojo froze, slowly turning back, only to see Ling Jia's body rising again, the gash in his skull knitting itself back together, flesh pulsing, bones snapping back into place with sickening cracks. Ling Jia's eyes now glowed a feral red that he grinned, voice deeper, more monstrous. "Face it, Jojo, your blade can't kill me." Jojo's eyes widened. He instantly raised his blade, placing it firmly before his chest, that he inherited the zombie wolf's regeneration. "I have to end this now." But before he could strike, Ling Jia appeared beside him like a shadow. His voice oozed into Jojo's ear like venom. "We're the same. Jojo, this is our era. Join me. The dead will serve us. The living will feed us. Humanity will kneel as livestock beneath our rule." He gestured toward the swarming hordes. "I even brought you a little gift. Cleared out those inferior bloodlines around you to house that for a warm welcome." Down below, the zombie tide had already reached the walls. Inside the courtyard, Zhou's parents, Xia Bingbing, and the others were struggling to hold the line. From the side, Uncle Niu shouted Zhou, the west side's collapsing. Zhou's father panted, sweat pouring down his face. "Hold a little longer. Xiaoshu and Zhuo, they'll finish this soon." But before he could even catch his breath, boom, a massive crash shook the ground. The giant bear's corpse landed beside him, kicking up a cloud of dirt and blood. From behind the wall, Zhou Ming's voice rang out with a hint of mischief. "Man, this guy really could take a beating. Let's use him to patch the hole, yeah?" Zhou's father turned quickly, relieved and tense. "Xiaoshu, how's your brother? Is Zhou all right?" Zhou Ming looked at the zombies closing in from every direction. He clenched his jaw. There was no way to break away now. Turning to his father, he said firmly, "Don't worry. Jojo has more potential than I ever did. He'll finish this." Meanwhile, Joshua was once again struck by Ling Jia, sent flying, crashing into the earth with a bone-crunching thud. Dust exploded outward. He lay there, blood dripping from his mouth, body battered. Ling Jia stepped down, crouching atop the rubble with a wicked grin. "Tisich. Disappointing. This is all you've got, Joshua. Still, bend the knee now, and I'll forgive you for raising your blade against your king." But before the words had even left his mouth, slash! A crimson flash streaked through the air. Jojo surged forward, his blade cleaving into Ling Jia's chest, sending him flying through 3 stone walls. Dust still swirling, Jojo stood tall, eyes sharp, voice cold. "Humans don't walk with beasts, especially not ones that bear their fangs at my family." He marched toward the crumpled figure in the rubble, sword still dripping with blood, and, with a voice like judgment, he declared, "Ling Jia, there's only one thing left for me to do. Kill you." Ling Jia's chest wound began sealing up almost instantly. Standing tall, he licked Jesue's blood from his claw, voice cold and menacing. "Is that so? What a shame, Jesue. Then I hereby sentence you to death." In a flash, he lunged forward. His claw came down like a falling guillotine, slicing through the air with terrifying force. Joshua barely raised his blade in time. Clang! Sparks exploded on impact. He's faster, stronger. Joshua's arms trembled from the force. "I can't hold this much longer." Blow after blow rained down. Ling Jia was relentless. A searing pain tore through Jojo's arm. A deep gash opened through even his blood barrier. Reacting instantly, he kicked back and landed several paces away, breathing heavily. He glanced at the wound, eyes narrowing. "Even my blood azure shield can't hold anymore. I'm reaching my limit." Across the battlefield, Ling Jia sneered, licking his claw. "Impressive, Jojo. You dodged that. I really thought I'd be admiring your intestines by now." Jojo felt his strength draining, his vision slightly blurring. The blood Azura aura was flickering, dying. But then, he looked up, stared straight at the monster before him, and gripped his blade tighter. "If I only have one strike left, then let it end with that." Before Jojo could even react, Ling Jia suddenly appeared in front of him. He grinned wickedly, eyes glowing red. "Hey, gotcha. Honestly, even I don't know how strong I am at full power." Joshua froze for a second, just long enough. Ling Jia's claw slashed across his chest, deep and brutal. Blood burst from the wound, painting the ground. But in that instant, Jojo reached into his coat. With one final surge of will, he threw a homemade explosive straight at Ling Jia's face. "Enjoy this surprise, bastard." Boom! Flames roared to life, engulfing the area in a hellish inferno. From within the blaze, Ling Jia's voice echoed out, cold and mocking. "A Molotov? You think that's enough to kill me?" As the smoke cleared, Ling Jia stepped out, unharmed. But Jojo was gone. He blinked, then muttered. He ran. Then he laughed. Har, maniacal, unhinged. HH, your blood smells like a flare in the dark. You think you can hide from me? His grin vanished. Eyes turned ice cold. Run all you want, Joshua. I'll find you. And when I do, I'll tear you apart piece by piece. Elsewhere, Joshua collapsed inside a dark convenience store. Gasping for breath, he clutched his wound. Sweat, blood, and pain blurred together, but his grip on the blade remained firm. Joshua leaned against the cold shelf, eyes locked on his wounded arm. The bleeding had stopped. Not healed entirely, but enough. He felt a flicker of surprise. Blood Azura can heal, but his relief was short-lived. His energy was nearly gone. Just one move left. One last chance. Outside the gas station, footsteps echoed. Then came Ling Jia's voice, booming and cruel. A gas station? Really, Zhou Zhuo? Some people die with no taste. You chose your coffin like a peasant. His claw dragged across a rusted van, sparks flying with every scrape. Metal shrieked in protest. He slowed his steps, voice turning low and deliberate, like a predator explaining the rules of the hunt. Tell me, do you know why wolves hunt, even when they're not hungry? Ling Jia walked slowly, voice almost reverent. To feel a prey's terror, their desperate hope crushed after every clever trick fails, that moment of pure collapse. That's the finest spice. With a twisted grin, he slammed his foot into a nearby car. Crash. The vehicle flipped like a toy, landing with a deafening metallic screech. He glanced at the ground, following the trail of blood. It led to a barely visible tripwire, glistening faintly with gasoline. Above it, a glass Molotov ready to drop at the slightest touch. Ling Jia scoffed, his smile widening. You thought I'd be stupid enough to follow your little trail? To walk right into your trap like some blind mutt? He slowly raised a claw, eyes narrowing. No, the strongest scent of blood is coming from up there. Slash! With a sudden leap, Ling Jia cleaved upward, his claw ripping into the roof. The ceiling shattered, crashing down in a storm of steel and wood. The roof came crashing down, debris scattered, and amidst the dust, a blood-soaked jacket dropped at Ling Jia's feet. He snatched it up, confused, eyes narrowing. What a jacket! But before he could even react, whoosh! Zhou Zhuo exploded out from the shadows. Right in front of him, in one smooth motion, he flung a fistful of powder into Ling Jia's face. Eeyore! Ling Jia howled in agony, clutching his burning eyes. Joshua, what the hell did you do? Joshua stepped closer, voice calm and cold. That's salt? You couldn't smell it. A slight smirk curled at his lips. Then again, you can't smell anything anymore. Can't see either, can you? Joshua stepped forward, voice cold and measured. You inherited the zombie wolf's strength, but also its greatest weakness. A wolf's nose holds over 200 million scent cells, capable of detecting over 2 million different smells. That sensitivity turns salt into absolute agony. He locked eyes with a writhing Ling Jia. Most people drop their guard once they think they've seen through a trap. You call yourself king, but you're no different, just a blind dog choking on its own arrogance. Ling Jia roared, eyes wild with rage. Joshua, I'll kill you. I'll tear you apart. Joshua raised his blade, calm as ever. You won't get the chance. Blood energy surged through his arm, wrapping his sword in a crimson storm of power. Blood Azura, world splitter. The blade came down in a flash of red light. Boom! Ling Jia was smashed into the earth, a shockwave ripping through the ground. Smoke filled the air until the crater came into view. Zhuge was stood at the edge, staring, down into the pit. Still alive, he muttered. Damn, you monsters really are hard to kill. Ling Jia lay crushed in the crater, bloodied and gasping, but still snarling through his teeth. I'm a king. I don't die. But something changed. His eyes widened in shock as he noticed liquid rising around him, thick, oily, and reeking of gasoline. What is this? He shouted, panic replacing fury. Jojua's voice cut through the tension, calm and cold. Those little firebombs? They weren't enough. He stopped ashore the crater, looking up at the sky. So I figured, why not test if a full underground fuel tank can blow a monster like you straight to hell? His tone never rose. There was no anger, no fear, only quiet finality. This gas station is your coffin. Goodbye, Ling Jia. Boom! Back at the village, Joe's father stood at the gate, weapons in hand. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion rocked the horizon. He looked up, confused. What in the world? And then, a brilliant fireball bloomed in the distance, a second sun rising over the ruins. Joe's father stood in silence, watching the fiery glow on the horizon. "The sun's up," he muttered. "Look!" Zhou shouted excitedly. Everyone turned. The horde of zombies that had been surrounding them all night was retreating. As the tide of death slowly pulled back, the exhausted defenders finally smiled, relieved, alive. Meanwhile, Joshua looked toward the rising sun. He smiled faintly and started walking back home, but a weak voice called out from behind. Leaning against a broken wall was a pale, barely conscious figure. "Joshua, help me." Her head fell forward as her strength gave out. Joshua froze, turned. Back slowly, Li Qin, back at home. Zhou Ying stood with her arms crossed, glaring at her brother. "Bro, are you seriously a pervert? What kind of guy strips a girl in public?" Jojo sighed, clearly frustrated. "I was just checking if Li Qin had been bitten. You can't just bring someone home because they look okay. Too many groups were wiped out for that exact mistake." He added, almost defensively, "And I wasn't wearing a shirt either, so technically it was fair." Zhou rolled her eyes. "That just makes you sound more like a creep. Good thing I stopped you in time." If Icy had seen that, Jojo opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, the nearby door creaked open. Xiao Bingbing stepped out calmly. "She's fine," she said. "I checked her. Just exhausted, both mentally and physically. She'll wake up soon." She paused, glancing at the two. "Why do you both look so weird?" Zhou Ying coughed, forcing a smile. "Nothing. We're just glad you're okay." "I see." Zhou would turn toward her, a hint of warmth in his voice. "Thanks for everything." Xiao Bingbing lowered her gaze, quietly replying, "I didn't really do anything. You're the ones who did all the hard work." After a short rest, Huang Tao, Uncle Niu, and Xiao Bingbing prepared to leave. They wanted to check the village for any more survivors while it was still daylight, part of their duty as members of the village council. Just before they left, Jojo called out to Xiao Bingbing, seeing the guilt in her eyes. "Bingbing, don't blame yourself. No one can stop a zombie tide. In advance, we can't save everyone. But as long as we're alive, there's still hope." Xiao Bingbing turned back, smiling gently. "I know, thank you." From a car, Zhou Ming chuckled. "Not bad, little bro. You're finally learning how to talk like a human being." Jojo watched the group drive off, murmuring this time the ending's finally different. Zhou Ming raised an eyebrow. "Huh? What are you talking about? I meant your EQ, but never mind." He sighed, then nudged the ignition. "Let's move. We still need to deal with these bodies." The two drove toward the mountains and got to work on the final cleanup. Standing before the burning corpses, Zhou Shuisho spoke quietly. "These mutated corpses have to be incinerated. If animals eat them, we might be looking at the next disaster." Zhou Ming clapped the dust off his hands and grinned. "Well, looks like we can finally go home and get some real sleep. Oh, and Jojo, make sure to take the car through the gas station wash. It reeks." Jojo scratched his head awkwardly. "Yep, about that gas station." Then he frowned. "Wait a sec. Why me?" Zhou Ming slung an arm around his shoulder with a smirk. "Because I'm your big bro. Got a problem with that?" Jojo narrowed his eyes. "You know the rules." Zhou Ming raised an eyebrow. "Seriously? You sure you can still beat me now?" Jojo scoffed. "Please, I've never lost a ghost tag." They quickly set it up. Zhou Ming was the ghost hunter. Jojo played the ghost. The rules were simple. The hunter counts for 10 seconds while the ghost runs. If caught within 3 minutes, the hunter wins, and the ghost just run like hell. As Jojo's power flared and he sprinted off, Zhou Ming chuckled behind him. "Really? Pulling that trick? You do remember I know it too, right?" Before Jojo could even react, Zhou Ming was already right behind him. He lunged to grab him, but Jojo stopped on a dime, twisted his body, and dodged to the side like a shadow. The two dashed through the forest, leaping over roots, weaving between trees, locked in a relentless game of tag. Suddenly, Jojo leapt high, aiming for a tree branch overhead. Zhou Ming blinked in surprise, then smirked. "Oh, going airborne? Nice try." Without warning, he charged straight toward the tree, just as Jojo reached for the branch. Crack! Through a tree toppled with a thunderous crash. Startled, Jojo adjusted Medea and landed safely on the ground. Behind him, Zhou Ming was still grinning, blade in hand, fresh from felling the tree. "Thought you'd escape up there? Not a chance." Jojo had barely landed when he felt something massive coming from behind. He spun around, only to see Zhou Ming hurling the whole tree trunk at him. Jojo crossed his arms, bracing himself, and blocked it with full force. The brothers locked in place, one pushing, one resisting, energy crackling between them. Zhou Ming laughed, his voice full of challenge. "Running again, little bro?" Jojo didn't answer his brother's teasing. He was too focused on holding back the crashing tree trunk, silently marveling at the raw force behind it. Realizing there was no way to push back head-on, he let the momentum carry him backward to absorb the impact. Moments later, the log smashed into the cliff with a thunderous crash, kicking up a cloud of dust and splinters. Zhou Ming, standing amid the mess, scratched his head awkwardly. "Did I go too hard?" he shouted. "Zhou, you get down there?" But got no reply. As the dust cleared, he saw no one. Then, bonk, a pebble hit the top of his head. Zhou's voice floated down from above. "Time's up. Ghost wins this round." Zhou Ming looked up at the cliff and called out, "When did you get up there, you sneaky brat?" Zhou jumped down lightly, grinning. "When I leaned back against the cliff to absorb the impact, I figured out a lot about how our powers work." Zhou Ming nodded. "I got mine from absorbing a zombie core. You too, right?" Zhou rolled his shoulders and replied casually, "Something like that." Though in his mind he added, "Technically, it was in my previous life." Then aloud, "But I think my ability is a bit different. I can tap into other people's powers." Zhou Ming blinked in surprise. "Wait, you mean you can use my powers? Like copy them? Not just coincidence." Zhou Shen nodded. "Yeah, something like that. Your ability? Blood Bastion, right? It boosts physical strength, speed, and defense. Plus, that crimson aura around you can block most physical attacks. Based on our little scuffle, I think I can replicate about 70% of it." Zhou Ming raised an eyebrow. 70%? And I still lost? Damn. "That's not all," Zhou added. "I think I can assess your abilities in a pretty detailed way." Zhou Ming blinked. "Hold on, are we talking RPG character stats now? Like you got a personal interface or something?" "Not exactly," Zhou said, flexing his fingers. "It's more of an instinct. Like I can feel the numbers behind a person's strength. If the average adult stat is 20, your power and agility would be around 90. Your endurance may be 95. As for intelligence, wait, Zhou Ming interrupted, grinning. "Don't tell me this thing makes me smarter too?" Zhou was smirked. "More, like 0. Honestly, watching you wrestle with the tree stump was kind of painful." Zhou Ming threw an arm around his shoulder with a mock snarl. "Careful, kid. My 0 IQ might still knock your teeth out." Then he suddenly remembered something. "Oh, right. The zombie bear's core crystal. I stashed in your drawer. Might come in handy later." While the brothers were talking, someone unknown was watching them from behind the trees. Night fell. Joshua went to bed, and his sister stood in the middle of the room, rummaging through his things. She was looking for the magic stone. The power should be hers now. The next morning, Joshua was digging the soil on the property. Whether it was a bed or a grave, he didn't know. He wondered why everything was falling back on him. He remembered his mother's words. It was time to stock up and prepare the soil. Who could do it better than him? Humbled, he activated his power and began digging with his hoe as if possessed. There was a girl standing behind the house. She hesitated, gathering her thoughts. She hesitated and called out to Joshua, saying she'd been looking for him for a long time, but then she noticed the mess in the yard. He called out to Li Qing and asked if everything was all right. She nodded and thanked him for saving her. Joshua reminded her that he'd just kept his promise to help when he needed it. No thanks were required. Li Qing insisted he had saved her life. Now she wanted to know if he would help her again if he had to. When Joshua looked at the contents of the jar, he refused, surprising her. He explained that he had kept his promise and his debt to Uncle Li had been repaid. There was no reason for him to help further. The girl was upset, but she accepted it. Meanwhile, the yard had been cleared of dirt. Looking at his hand, Joshua realized that this strength was not good for farming. He needed to train more and learn more control. Soon, someone shouted his name. Joshua opened the door and saw someone he knew. It turned out that no one in the village had survived. Only they had survived. Xiao Bianning apologized, but Joshua said that there was no need to blame himself. The wave of zombies could not be stopped even if all measures were taken. They had already done their best by taking the risk of surveying the village. Looking at the trio, he said there was nothing to apologize for. The old man asked, "What do we do now?" Joshua was silent for a moment and answered, "It's simple. Take a shower, rest, and have dinner together. No matter what happened, they were still alive." Xiao Bianning came out of the shower. She looked at the clothes Joanne had given her and decided that they were a bit tight. Didn't it look strange? Her mother called out to Bing Bing. Dinner was ready. Twirling a strand of hair with her finger, the girl thought that even if it looked ridiculous, it wasn't a big deal. It was a cozy evening. The whole family gathered around the table to enjoy a home-cooked meal. Her mother told Bing Bing to sit next to Ju, and the girl obeyed. In her heart, she hoped that she would one day become her daughter-in-law. Li Qing looked at her with obvious dislike. Everyone at the table was smiling and joking, but Li Qing's tense gaze was fixed on Bing Bing and Ju. When everyone was seated, Father raised his glass. He reminded them that the last survivors of Qinshan village had gathered at this table. There is still no communication with the outside world, and they don't know what is happening elsewhere. But right now, the most important thing is to survive. He said that from that day on, they were one family, and they should work together, support each other, not just to survive, but to live with dignity. Everyone agreed with his words and raised their glasses. Suddenly, the soda bottle fell to the floor. The older brother looked at his little sister, in surprise. In the next second, Jo-in's eyes turned red. Jo immediately realized something was wrong. The girl suddenly swooped down on him and bit into his arm with her teeth. He managed to strengthen his body with his strength. No one realized what was happening. The father begged his daughter to stop. Li Qing was in shock. Jo-in gradually came to her senses. When she woke up, she saw everyone looking at her silently and tensely. Her father asked what had happened to her, but she didn't know what to say. She only looked fearfully at her older brother, asking for help. Without wasting a second, Ju punched his sister in the stomach, disabling her. He hastily stated that she had just had too much soda, and now they needed to get some fresh air. Yu could tell by the look on her face. She really wasn't feeling well, but no one asked any unnecessary questions. Under the moonlight, Jo-in frustratedly admitted that she had almost attacked the family. Jo asked why she had eaten the core in the first place. It was a good thing she was still alive. He didn't understand if she really thought it would go without consequences. The sister apologized and confessed she wanted to gain power too. Joey thought she'd caught him off guard this time. If he hadn't sensed it beforehand, it might have been worse. While this was going on, he decided to teach his sister how to control the force. He told her to imagine a stream of air filling her body. The ability was a part of herself, her instincts. Now, with this power, she should see the world differently. He asked what she saw. The girl stretched her hand forward and said, "She sees life." Her gaze caught the flow of energy in the earth. She seemed to be able to control this flow. A sprout burst out of the ground. Her power is to accelerate the growth of plants. The suspicions were confirmed. Joey had a special ability too. Pulling fresh potatoes out of the ground, he said he'd only planted them today. Now he knew how to solve the problem of provisions. And his sister. Vegetables and fruits would never again be in short supply for them. Jo-in was shocked. Was her ability only good for farming? She had dreamed of lasers from her eyes, controlling lightning, or transforming into a superheroine, and she ended up being a great farmer. It didn't seem fair to her. Joey thought about something else. The probability of power awakening after eating a zombie core was extremely low, but it had awakened in him and his sister, so it wasn't just a coincidence. It might be related to his own ability. The next morning, the rooster's crowing stopped abruptly. Joey couldn't stand the noise. He asked his uncle where he got the rooster from. He showed him a hen and said that the bird now had a pair. Both had been raised by him personally to get eggs. He added that once, a few years ago, the main farm in the village was short of labor, and the village committee asked him and Juan to help. When the work was completed, they were each given a hen and a rooster. He has kept them ever since. And Juan confessed that he had eaten his own long ago. These words made Joey think of a nearby farm. Soon, the whole group headed toward the farmland of Qinshan village. The protagonist explained the goal, to get as many pet birds and eggs with embryos as possible to breed at their place. Huang Tao asked if they were sure that everyone here was dead and no one would turn back into zombies. Judging by the wounds, the bodies really looked like they had been cut, not bitten. Joey reassured everyone that zombies didn't appear during the day. The main thing was not to go down into the basement where there was no sunlight. The bespectacled boy asked worriedly, "Is it the same in other villages? Is everything outside dead?" Uncle couldn't believe it. With so many weapons and resources, humanity should have been able to resist. Maybe help would come after all. Joey didn't hold out much hope. After all, the real threat is not zombies, but the virus that spawns them. The consequences of its spread are beyond human comprehension. At a time like this, you can only hope for yourself. Soon the trio reached the warehouse with eggs. There were an unexpectedly large number of eggs. Joe asked if they would be suitable, and his uncle said that with the right temperature and humidity, they could be artificially incubated. But to the bespectacled boy, it all seemed suspicious. So many eggs, but no chickens. Even my uncle wondered, if the birds had died, there should still be bodies. And then a strange creature appeared on the horizon, either a rooster, a duck, or a goose, a white goose. Goggles was delighted. He grabbed the goose, tied it by the wings, and was about to put it in a sack. But at the same moment, the goose's mouth opened wide. Now the boy was the prey. At the last moment, Joey managed to push his friend and the goose apart. Hu Tao asked confusedly what it was. Ju shouted that something strange was going on here and ordered everyone to leave immediately. As they stepped outside, they froze. A pack of zombie gooses stood in front of them, ugly, creepy, and aggressive. Without warning, the dead flock attacked. The protagonist quickly oriented himself and told everyone to run in the direction indicated, but Uncle and Juan were running too slowly. Ju realized that there was no way to get away from these creatures. By running, he used his power. The space glowed with green energy. Vines burst out of the ground and began to entangle the geese. It gave a small pause, and he shouted for everyone to keep running. However, another pack blocked the road ahead. They were surrounded. It seemed to be the end, but there was a door nearby. Rushing inside, they locked themselves in. His uncle was breathing hard and said that if Ju had any strength left, he should get out. He and Juan were in no condition to run. Ju replied firmly, if they were in trouble, it was his fault. He promised to get them both out alive. He even considered using the Blood Buddha's power to take them on and escape, but he doubted whether he would have enough speed to evade. The zombie goose. If they caught up, it was all over. Maybe it's time to fight back right now. At this time, Juan found the computers working. The electricity on the farm was still out. This surprised Joey. Juan explained that if the power was on, he could plug in and try to find a solution. But there wasn't much time left. The zombie goose was banging on the door, which was barely holding. Juan was hastily typing something on the keyboard, hoping to find a way to escape. Joey calculated that no more than 3 minutes and the door would fall, so he decided to attack first. When the geese struck again, the door itself played against them. It swung open and nailed several of the creatures to the wall, leaving only bloody scraps behind. Zhao looked at the remnants with contempt and slammed. The door shut again, but the geese were not satisfied with that. They rushed forward again. He opened the door, created an illusion of defense, and then struck a powerful blow with his ability, creating a shockwave. The geese shattered into feathers and chunks of flesh. He seemed to have bought a little time, but then something strange happened. Something gruesome began to form out of the bloody fragments. Uncle shouted worriedly, wondering how much longer to wait for Juan. Ju was breathing heavily, holding back the onslaught. Juan replied that he was almost done. As soon as the file was uploaded, it would be over. But what Zhao saw was a nightmare. A huge, fleshy creature gathered from the remains of the geese, opened its mouth and tried to swallow him. The monster pinned him with the door against the wall, and the hero realized his strength was not enough. With difficulty, he pushed himself up and rolled to the side, dodging the blow. At this point, the uncle ran out and ordered Joe to grab Juan and run. He would distract the creature. But Joe stood up resolutely and said what he had promised. They would all come home alive. No one would be left behind. In that instant, his eyes flashed with red and green light. He felt the energy of accelerated growth and strength intertwined within him. His whole gut was screaming that victory was a must. Gathering all his will, Ju gave a crushing blow. It was so powerful that it blew a hole through the monster. It couldn't recover. His strength had dissipated, and he could barely move his arm. He couldn't believe it had worked. The joy didn't last long, however. A new pack of zombie gooses attacked again. Joe was paralyzed. He couldn't move. One of the geese came close, but suddenly stopped only 10 centimeters away from him. There was music playing outside. The gramophone suddenly turned on. The geese paid sharp attention to the sound and ran in its direction. Soon Juan appeared and asked if Joe and Uncle were all right. Uncle, breathing heavily, looked at the fleeing zombies and asked, "Was that you?" Juan explained that he used the computer to log in and activate the feeding alarm. All the animals on the farm had memorized this tune for a long time. When they heard it, they would rush to the place where they were usually fed. Luckily, he'd gotten it all turned on in time. Now the three of us would never come back here again. Later, they were on their way down the road. Everyone was happy that the eggs were intact. Juan asked with surprise when his uncle had taken them. He replied that he had done it while he was showing him how to catch a goose, although he admitted that he had taken only a few. While the two chatted passionately, Ju stared at his hand in silence, remembering the moment when a new power awoke in him.